The Justice Department has announced that they are closing the investigation into the 2 Baton Rouge police officers who were involved in the death of Alton Sterling last year. Now, basically they have shut these multiple, he was shot multiple times, excuse me. He was shot multiple times and he was immobile. They were pinning him down. They claimed that he had a gun. Take a look at the video here.
Big ball. Big ball.
You're on the ground!
Careful, man.
16, 19, shots fired, shots fired.
So the Justice Department said they will not be bringing charges to those 2 police officers. And by the police account, officers Blaine Salamone and Howie Lake saw Sterling outside a convenience store in July after it was reported that a man had threatened someone there with a gun. Sterling, who was selling CDs outside the store, fit the description of that man. Now, both officers actually had body cameras, but the cameras were reportedly dislodged. Now, the US Department of Justice will not press federal civil rights charges against the officers involved in the shooting, which leaves it up to local officials. Now, after this shooting obviously went viral, the video of the shooting went viral last year in July. There were a lot of protests right outside of the convenience store and around the country. And so officials are fearing that this news that they're not going to be pressing charges might have sort of consequences that are in the similar vein where protests will erupt. A lot of schools are notifying parents of their plans if protests erupt in Baton Rouge. Now, the case will actually be the first time under Attorney General Jeff Sessions that the department was publicly declined to prosecute officers investigated for possible wrongdoing in a high-profile case. Now, this isn't a surprise since Sessions has also offered a tacit endorsement of what's known as the Ferguson effect, which refers to the contested idea that police might be afraid to get out of their cars and enforce the law for fear of ending up on viral video. Now, obviously this is awful. I mean, that video is just horrendous, and no matter how many times you've seen it, I think it still shakes you to your core. And I think this is just another instance of our government telling people that Black lives don't matter, and this is really, really unfortunate. And it's sort of giving a go-ahead for police to make these split decisions without facing any real repercussions.
Yeah, it sucks. Jeff Sessions is someone that I personally do not want in charge of dictating the legislative or the law enforcement agenda of the entire nation. And this is, yeah, it's the first time he's had to face this kind of decision. He has more coming down the pike. Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, and there's a 15-year-old kid in Dallas who got shot by police, and the police changed their story. And so these are the kinds of things when you look at a story like this, something that's been swirling in the ether, and you ask yourself, what can I do? It's just try to keep up the pressure on social media and elsewhere, take to the streets and march. I mean, there have been spontaneous marches today over this.
And I genuinely don't understand how, I mean, look, let me just start off by saying this. We talk about white privilege sometimes, and it's almost like a trigger word for a lot of people that are alt-right that hate watch our show. But the reality is, Jeff Sessions is never going to understand what it's like for a Black citizen to walk the streets and how fearful they are of police officers, because Jeff Sessions is an old white guy who's kind of racist. Grew up in a town, probably a smaller town, and he didn't have to experience that sort of systemic racism at all at any given point in his life. So that's why he can look at this issue and think about it from a police perspective. But the reality is, and we've talked about this over and over and over again, there's just simply no accountability. And if we're constantly talking about the argument on whether this is a Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter argument, rather than just this discriminatory practices and like this insane use of excessive force that leads to the death of unarmed Black people at a rate that's 5 times higher than white people, there's a serious problem that we need to talk about, but instead we're just talking about the argument.
And I think you're right, it is excessive force, and you can tell that from this video. And constitutionally, there are two instances where police can actually use lethal force and they can shoot. So the first circumstance is to protect their life or the life of another innocent party, what departments call the defense of life standard. And the second circumstance is to prevent a suspect from escaping, but only if the officer has probable cause to think that the suspect poses a dangerous threat to others. And from that video, you can see that in that instance, Alton Sterling was not being a probable threat. And so these police officers, it looks like from the video, did something that was not common.
He had to reach into the guy's cargo short pocket to get the gun, because the idea is at the very end of the video that you saw the police officer reaches into the pocket and removes some article, some item. Ostensibly that's the gun, and if the police officers had to be in fear of their life at that moment, like I would assume that the gun would have to be out or he had to be reaching for it aggressively. What it seemed like happened to me was that they had him pinned down. An officer discovered the gun, yelled, "He's got a gun." Everyone lost their shit, even though possessing a gun in Baton Rouge is totally legal. And then it escalated from there, whether it was the struggling cop on the top hitting the other cop who then with his gun pointed directly at this man. And that there's no way that can be the way you're supposed to do it.
Right.
And if it is, we need to change that. There's just so much else. But yeah, go ahead.
The legal ambiguity is what essentially the crux of the issue, right? It's the legal ambiguity that like you can't tell if the officer genuinely felt threatened or if the officer genuinely thought that this person was going to pose a threat to others if escaped. So that's a massive part of this problem, is that it's written within the legislation. Now, But what I'm saying is we don't even have any sort of accountability. We still don't have body cams for all units, and even if we did have body cams for all police departments, they still get dislodged, or precincts will hold on to that footage until they deem that they can release certain parts of it. That happens pretty frequently. On top of that, like I mean, without any layer of accountability, without independent review boards, for example, without any sort of new education, without inclusivity, this problem is going to continue to persist.
And the federal level is the hope, because a lot of times if it goes back to the same region where these police officers come from, then the attorneys that the police officers deal with every day in order to, in many cases deal with every day in order to prosecute what the police officers arrest. It's law and order. There's the police officers and then the lawyers who, the district attorneys. And so there is an inherent possible conflict of interest because these people have to work with each other, have worked with each other before, and have to after. Now, it's not over. This is not said and done. While the federal government has decided, the federal justice system has decided they're not going to pursue it, it goes back to local law enforcement. So there is another round where this could potentially find the kind of solution that a lot of us are looking for. And one more thing about the accountability, the logic that's used by Jeff Sessions and other law and order, justice advocates who say that there need to be, when they're saying we don't want to hold the police accountable, your argument all day, every day is we need higher punishments for criminals to deter them from doing negative acts. And so you need to have the same kind of accountability for law enforcement to deter them from doing negative acts.
Young Turks membership creates independent media.
Believe me.
No ads.
Believe me.
All the shows.
Believe me.
On demand.
Believe me.
Support independent media.
Believe me.
It's awesome, tremendous. You'll love it.
Believe me.
And by the end, you'll be thinking,
I'm like a smart person.
tytnetwork.com/join.